Aloha, everybody. Welcome to Optimize Your Naʻau Podcast. And today we have our special guest, Director of Practitioner Education for STEMREGEN, Michael McNeal. This is an episode where we not only touch upon what STEMREGEN is about and stem cells, we actually dive a little deeper into our spirituality, which is a conversation that, we tend to overlook sometimes, right? This is where a lot of deep healing really occurs, and we're super, super excited to get into that conversation again with Mike McNeal.
Enjoy.
Aloha, everybody. Welcome to Optimize Your Naʻau Podcast. My name is Dr. David Woodward, and this is Dara from Aesthetics by Dara. And we're here joining us today as a Director of Practitioner Education for STEMREGEN, our good friend, Mike McNeal.
Hi,
Aloha,
thank
Mike.
you guys. Aloha, thank you guys so much.
Aloha. We've been talking about this for so long, I feel like.
True.
And we're so excited to have you on and so excited to have this conversation, wherever this is going to lead us.
Heck yeah.
Just as a quick thing, I just want to interject real quick. The first time we met you in person, for me at least, was at Disrupt.
Yeah,
right?
wasn't it? Disrupt
in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I can say for myself, whenever we go to different conferences and you meet different people from different vendors, in other words, whether it be supplementation or technology, you always find those people that as soon as you have a conversation with them, you immediately just connect. And you were one of those people, Mike. It's an energy thing, right? But
and he wouldn't stop coming back for facials.
For sure.
That's actually true.
But also, we can't leave this out. Okay.
Oh yeah, we can't.
I mean, for the longest time, at full transparency, we were calling you the wrong name
For 3 days.
For 3 days, Mike.
For 3 days.
It's okay.
You still were like, oh yeah, thank you. What was it? Nick? We went through James,
Josh,
Jim.
Dude, I love that. I look like all of them. I could be Nick. I could be Josh.
And we didn't realize it until we saw your name tag at the last day. I was like, oh.
As we were saying goodbye.
Bye, Mike.
But really, just want to let everyone know, really, we clicked because you are so genuine and you are so open.
And so kind,
So kind.
Yeah.
And we just had such an awesome time with you. And, we had heard of STEMREGEN.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I was doing actually Dr. Drapol's brain tap session on brain tap.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And so when you introduced us to the STEMREGEN, the activation system, the stem cell, the mobilization, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because at that time, I think you folks, before that, the whole protocol came out, I think you folks only had a release, I believe.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, that was the flagship product.
And we did get to try that, and I couldn't truly pinpoint, because of the amount of things that we do take ourselves to. And I couldn't really tell what was really happening yet, but I did know that I felt better until I tried out that protocol that you shared with us. And it wasn't the sport protocol, which is one of my favorites right now. But that protocol that you shared with us, I noticed a significant difference in how I felt every day. And, especially the sport one, because we're starting to change our routines in exercise and movement. And the typical things that would bother us due to our past histories were just not that they almost didn't exist, but it was like we could move through those patterns without hesitation. Wow. Because it didn't feel like how it used to. Like usually, like in the beginning, before we start, there's like some general creaks, aches, and being the past history of what we went through during our respective sports. And just since we've been on it for over a year,
yeah
a bit over a year, because we tried the release first, right? But since being over a year, I can tell you, this is my daily, using the STEMREGEN. So
yeah. So real quick, Mike, can you just educate our listeners what that protocol is intended for and what it does?
Yeah, so great question. So STEMREGEN was created around the science of what we like to term as endogenous stem cell mobilization. So you have a system in your body that is your repair system. It's just like you have an immune system. If you get exposed to a bacteria, virus, and infection, there's a whole cascade of things that'll occur within the body to help your body take care of that infection. Boom, you wipe it out. This is how the creator made our bodies. Well, there's a whole other system that is actually directly linked to your bone marrow's ability to put stem cells in circulation. When you put those stem cells in circulation, there's a power of tissue regeneration that occurs. So if you were a kid and you broke a bone and they set the bone in a cast, how did your bone and tissues and everything get healed with no internal medicine? And that's because that system kicks on to keep our bodies in homeostasis. So Christian Drapeau, our founder, found back in 1995, believe it or not, that there are plant extracts that can actually, what I like to deem as injury mimicking compounds, meaning you get a release of stem cells from the bone marrow, just like if you were in a position of an injury. That circulating stem cell increase can go and optimize all tissue functionality of the body. So it helps you repair, it helps aid in longevity. By putting more stem cells in circulation, you're offsetting the age-related decline of cellular degeneration, which is actually in a direct correlation to how you accumulate age-related diseases. So there's this longevity power that you start to tap into as you take this STEMREGEN protocol, and it's really tackling 3 root causes of disease formation within the body, and it's giving our bodies all of the preventative materials from these plant extracts to help our bodies stay in homeostasis. And for me, it was the first supplement company that I've come into in my own practice for my clients and with myself that has real white paper research behind it, meaning we pay for case studies with doctors that are published in medical journals to show the efficacy of the products and the power that they have, which is just, I've worked for many companies, never had one that is bridging the gap in the Western medical world and making an impact where Eastern medicine meets Western medicine. And so there are these just very powerful system, and I'm sure we'll go into the details of all of it, but at a very high level, it's giving your body this ability to tap into your own stem cells, which are genetically tagged by you. They're safe and effective for you to utilize already. By you putting more in circulation, just like you guys on a workout routine, you recover so much faster. And that recovery, the purpose of the system is that you'll repair like you're in your 20s, in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And we start to say this, it's not about how long you live, it's the quality of life you're given. And so if you can take things that make the quality of your life better, that's the type of stuff that I want in my routine every day.
Yeah, for sure. So you said that these are all plant-based, right? That stimulate. So is there anyone that cannot take it, or is it really good for anyone? And how old can somebody start using this?
It's really good for anyone. And honestly, the older that you start taking it, the more powerful I've seen in transformations. Like my stepmom, who's 83, is having profound recovery post an ablation surgery that she had for an arrhythmia. And she was having a leaky valve that was creating an oxygen issue on the left side of her body and was causing her to tremor. And she took STEMREGEN's protocol. And post ablation, the doctor was shocked. She needed no beta blockers. She didn't need any statins. She didn't need anything, because even if you had 1% left of your body's ability to produce stem cells from your bone marrow into circulation, that 1% can ignite the regeneration of your entire body. That's how powerful that system is. It only takes a fraction of it for it to regenerate any and all tissues, no matter how old you are. So I've seen very young people benefit from it, starting at, even in their childhood, like as early as 12 years old. And I've seen patients, well, a lot of our case studies, patients are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, because this is really when we get hit with an age-related disease situation.
Yeah.
It hits us out of nowhere, but it started accumulating way back in our 20s and 30s. So it's profound. I really encourage, I mean, it's good for all age conditions. And really, there's not a condition that I didn't put it in a patient's body that I didn't get a positive outcome with.
That is
That's
awesome.
good information.
That
You
is
know,
so
most people relate stem cell therapies to not just aging, but things that are commonly tied to aging, right? Whether it be like skin or, you know, orthopedic, you know, type of related injuries, you know, or past history of injuries. But to know that, you know, this, you know, kind of overlaps with all conditions, you know, it's profound, like you're saying.
Well, and I think, you know, a lot in Western medicine, we're told there's not much we can do with aging
Right.
stuff,
Right.
right? There's not much we can do about that.
Yep.
And, you know, you put it, I mean, just like you said, it's an accumulation, right? And so to know that we can actually do something about it, I mean, and your 83-year-old
Stepmom, yeah.
stepmother, you know, was able to correct some injury. I mean, that is just, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. And that's awesome. And you, by the way, look great.
Thank you.
So
I
we're
feel.
gonna and that's yeah. And you know, little birdie told me you're gonna have like a 25th birthday soon.
35th.
25, 35, tomato.
Heck yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm excited. The wisdom is good.
Listening, that's what I was gonna. So the you know, listening to you speak, you're so passionate,
You can tell for sure.
and that is what is so infectious. And so this for you, you know, being an educator and you know, looking at these case studies and you know, you working with STEMREGEN and doing all of these clinical, you know, the research and the studies, it must be so rewarding.
It's so rewarding. It's the most rewarding work I've ever got to do in my career. It's every single thing that I've been through in a personal and professional journey in my own health and wellness and spirituality fully amalgamates in STEMREGEN, in what we're doing, in who we are as a company, and who and how our founder is so deeply tied to me. Even having lunch with him 2 days ago, the conversation was an hour and a half about spirituality and the journey of the soul.
Wow.
And here we are, like nerdy stem cell nutrition, you know, we're in all that stuff. But when I have the opportunity to sit down with him, we're talking about near death experiences, and we're talking about how we're helping ourselves from a spiritual plane, whether you can see it or not, and how the universe and God has just perfectly aligned a path for you that we all will walk on, that taps into our gifts. And so I really feel like I'm in my calling. I mean, my family's in ministry, and my boss jokingly, but he calls me like the preacher of STEMREGEN. He's like, you have the heart of a pastor and you get up with the heart of a message. And it's just because I do eat, breathe, and sleep in an attitude of gratefulness that I have the ability, and I'll get into my story later, I'm sure, but the ability to be able to share is a gift from God, because there's been a few times in my life where I didn't think I would make it, and I was able to have that gift given to me so I could be right here with you guys and in front of people, you know, practitioners and patients and people. And inspiration's a ripple that is used to connect us to each other. And so I hope people who are listening to this podcast get inspired to take a step into your spiritual journey, into, you know, your identity in that spiritual plane, and really just not be afraid to be exactly who God or the universe created you to be.
I love
Nicely
that.
said.
I love that. And, you know, as a reminder, our spirit sometimes can be so much stronger than our physical body.
Absolutely.
Right? So having something like this to match that energy, we need it. And thank God you have it so that you can do your work. And we're so grateful that you're here and all this education that you're able to impart on more people that can make a difference in so many people's lives.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, why don't you tell us your story? What is your journey?
Yeah.
How did
Share
you
with
get
us.
here?
Okay, I definitely will. I used to tell all my patients this is my superhero origin story because from pain to purpose is
Yeah.
really where most of us in the healing community, we were in our crisis hour, and lo and behold, someone or some way down the path, there was the sign for us to get better. And in my case, I had 2 traumatic brain injuries. One when I was 12. I was actually practicing the fake kick in theater class. I was in musical theater. I thought I would be an actor. So that was like a big aspiration of mine, was like, I'm going to act and I'm going to be in movies and television. I just love what acting was like. And so we were practicing West Side Story. There's a big fight scene in it. And there was a girl in my class when I was 12 that I really wanted to impress. So I tend to be like a class clown, or I would be like overacting, like just really putting on a show for her. And I wound up pushing myself off the ground. And when you do the fake kick, you kick to the ground, you kind of whip your body over. And when I pushed myself off the ground, there was a metal podium corner. We were practicing in the cafeteria, and I didn't see it. And I landed right on the back of my right side of my head. It just jabbed right in. And the pain reverberated in my body so strong that I stood up super fast, and I fell straight forward, and I cracked my forehead on the linoleum floor. And I have this Y scar right here that's pretty deep. That was like a sign when my head split open and just blood was pouring down my face. I was laying on the linoleum floor. My theater teacher, who's this little 5-foot lady, thank God she knew what to do in the situation of a TBI. She ran over. She was slapping me. She was asking me questions. What's my favorite food? What's my favorite color? And at the time it was like Little Debbie's like snack cakes, and like I was just like not a health person at this point, but
Yeah.
I was just answering her. They put me in an ambulance. She knew I played guitar and music, so she told the ambulance people to play guitar, because anything to stimulate neurology when you're on the point of going into a coma will keep you awake. And so almost went into a coma at 12. And a rotational head injuries, traumatic brain injuries create leaky gut. They release zonulin. It breaks down the tight junctions of your stomach, and it can create spinal misdevelopment, because rotational injuries as your spine is still developing can stunt your growth. And so there's all kinds of challenges that I was faced in that one situation. And in the Western medical world, I sat in a big fancy hospital for 3 days, running tests and all these different things. I came out of it with no solution and a $20,000 bill that crippled my parents, who were in ministry. It's not like they had tons of extra money. And to go into a situation where you have no answer to a problem, but you have a giant bill and you are given no hope of any change moving forward, they just kind of put you off and to say, there you go, just enjoy your life. And it was such a weird feeling to know it crippled my parents financially. And a year later, when I was 13, I was playing guitar. So I played guitar since I was 7. And I was playing, and we lived in a mobile home park, so we weren't really that well off. We kind of lived how our means could justify. And so I was playing at the mailbox corner, and I used to be like the neighborhood squire. So I'd walk around and play for like everyone in the neighborhood. And I was known as, they used to call me Mikey back in the day. I wasn't Mike, but as Mikey, who was like the squire. And I'm playing one day, and this man in a white truck with a bottle of Jack Daniels on his dash pulls a revolver out to my face while I'm playing. And the moment I see the gun, I go into what they call a vagal freeze. My whole nervous system shuts down, and like a possum plays dead so the predator won't hurt them, I fell over and hit the left side of my head on the concrete as I heard 3 shots. And in that moment of facing what I thought would have been my death, I was giving up my spirit to God. So I was like, God, if this is like what is meant for me, then I give myself to you. And if my death is going to bring other people life, then so be it. And I just had this peaceful moment, even though when I woke up from this second traumatic brain injury, and they were back to back a year later, I didn't want to tell anything to my parents. I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to tell anybody because I thought if 20,000 could cripple my parents, what would another bill do to them? And so as bad as this is, I've also I'm born an empath. I'm born feeling everybody's everything.
Yeah.
And so I just decided to stay quiet. And what started to develop for me was by age 16, I dropped out of high school. I developed type 2 diabetes. I developed Tourette syndrome. I had severe learning issues. My nervous system could not input or process information correctly at all. I had severe body dysmorphia. And I just got to the point where in the Western world, they just gave you a diagnosis, which if you believe is your absolute, it is like a curse spoken over you that you literally program your cells to believe a story about your body, and you will embody disease at a spiritual physiological level. They combine themselves. And so at the time I actually had a youth pastor, and this is way deeper part of the story, but it goes in and ties into where hopefully we do go deeper than just the story in general, because I did at the end get my health back, but God used people in my life to really help me along the way. But I had a youth pastor, and I was actually writing music for his first worship album, and I just got super quiet. And one day I walked in the youth room, and he's like, "Mike, I had a dream about you." And I was like, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You were sitting in front of your house and you were playing guitar, and the devil had a machine gun out and he was shooting at you from above. And there were rows and rows of angels in front of you stopping all the bullets." And he goes, "Are you being attacked in sin?" And I literally collapsed in tears. And years had gone by. I didn't talk about this to anybody. And that's what trauma can do. Trauma will shut you down. It creates a shame spiral. It creates a dysmorphic field in your body, and you start to protect yourself from other people interacting with you. And I became basically like a loner. And so I broke down. I told him the whole story. And at this point, my ticking on the left side was so bad. It was just like the more nervous or the more kind of neuronal energy it took, the worse it was getting. And so he goes, "You haven't told your mom, have you?" And I was like, "I haven't told anybody my whole life. I've just kept this quiet." And he goes, "Oh my God." He's like, "Let's go tell her now." Well, that led to her, my stepmom, my dad. Everybody became my advocate for me. They were going to find somebody in this world who could make the impossible possible. And so shout out to Dr. Peter Gillet. He still practices today in Carrollton, Texas, Applied Kinesiology of Carrollton. And Dr. Vincent Gonino, he's in Rockwall, Texas. He's a functional medicine doctor. Dr. Gillet is a funk neurochiropractor. Dr. Gonino is a functional medicine doctor. I went both tracks where woo-woo meets the reality of functional medicine, very left brain approach. I saw both of them for 3 years, reversed both diagnoses, got my entire life back. And I wanted to dedicate my life to giving this to others, whether that's practitioners to empower patients, whether that was me becoming a certified holistic health coach and helping just help anybody I could. And the one thing that I realized is as I was on this healing journey, I was voraciously eating information like what would now be this podcast. I listened to hours of stuff like this so that I could empower myself. And here's the deal. If you eat knowledge and apply it to yourself, and it's not for forced regurgitation on a test to have a piece of paper that says you're an expert, there's a lot of experts out there who are applying knowledge like you can from a podcast like this, and you can become an expert in your own community. And that's what happened to me. I started helping people in my church. I started helping people in my community. I couldn't help myself. I was like a healer without a degree, without anything to show for it. So I just dedicated my life, and that's what I've been doing ever since. I've worked in clinics. I've worked alongside some of the top doctors. I've gained skill sets in different modalities and became a certified holistic health coach in 2015 through IIN's program and just launched from there. I've shadowed all kinds of docs, and I have a wealth of knowledge from everything that I suffered that has what I would say is an anointing behind helping someone understand it, because it came from a place where if a patient is suffering, I've suffered too. And so there's a resonance between that. And so it's just been the biggest blessing for me to be on platforms like this, like you guys' podcast, or in front of practitioners at events and inspiring them, because so many doctors who are just on the track of learning things, they sometimes forget to take care of themselves. And then two, sometimes they lose inspiration because healing work takes a lot from our bodies. And so if you're listening to this and you're a healer in any capacity, remember to give yourself the same amount of grace and healing and compassion you're giving your patients, your clients, your family. Give it to yourself. It's so important. It's so important.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
First of all, what an incredible story.
Absolutely.
I would read your book today.
You're like the 20th person who's like, you need to write a book.
Oh, really? No, really. You know,
Seriously though. Yeah.
that was an incredible story. I mean, I'm here like trying to.
I was holding it in. I was too. You know, and we truly appreciate, you know, you for being, you know, I mean, it takes a lot of courage to share a story like this, and just holding in a lot of, I mean, what we're feeling, you know, being empaths as well.
Yeah.
You know, like partly is relatable, you know, because of some of the experiences we went through. But hearing your story, like, you know, can be an inspiration to many others, you know, to not just persevere, but, you know, it doesn't stop. Like, you know, healing can continue on, right? Like, this is not your end.
And it doesn't define you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And you are living proof of that. I mean, you know, listening to you talk about it, and we're parents too, right? So, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That just, yeah.
I take a breath.
Take a breath. You know, but what you said at the end, I love what you said at the end about, you know, healers having to take care of yourselves, and listeners, not just doctors.
Yeah.
Right. Not just doctors, estheticians like me, people who do energy, any type, right? Anybody that you come in contact with. I mean, human connection is so healing, and you said it.
Absolutely.
Right. If we are making conscious choices and decisions to be of service every single day, yes, it takes a lot, because we are limited to this physical body that all of that energy is housed in.
I agree.
Right. And so, and so doing things that we need to do to take care of ourselves so that we can stay on this plane if we choose to, right. And help those on this plane.
Yeah.
Then we do. We need to take those measures and those precautions. Wow. That was such a phenomenal story.
Thank you so much.
For sure. Powerful.
Yeah.
Can I ask some insight on the journey that your parents went through?
Yeah, it was, I will tell you, it was a real, my mom struggled because we couldn't tell if my condition was psychological, meaning, do I need a counselor who, like, through regression therapy? And so my mom put me in Christian counseling. It didn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
I just wind up talking to somebody about angsty teen issues, and it didn't hit the root of the problem. And she's like, well, maybe you need a chiropractor. But it was like, it wasn't just chiropractic. I mean, I went in and got an adjustment, and I felt maybe 20% better, but there was a layer way deeper than that. And my stepmom and my dad's been a missionary for most of his life. And there's a lot of old school healing remedies when you're on the other side of the world ministering to a tribe that doesn't have Quest diagnostics, that you'll rely on roots and herbs and different things. And they were just on a different path. And really a big kind of personal journey was to move from my mom's house to my stepmom and my dad's house. And my stepmom and my dad lead a church group. And literally the moment I was in their house, they put out to their church group, like, do you know anybody who can help Michael? Because we don't want him to, like, they saw my physicality and my mental state so diminished that I could feel them feeling me. They just wanted me healed so bad. And that's the thing, is it takes advocacy of someone. In the Christian terminology, we'd call it an intercessor, someone who would stand in the gap. If you didn't know how to do it yourself, parents are the ultimate version of this. You guys would die for your children without even thinking about it. You just do it. And that was the level of power that they were like, my son is going to take his health back. We're going to find someone who's going to empower him. And sure enough, by advocating for me, there was a man in our church who started to see this very weird chiropractor, because functional neurology and chiropractic is a whole other realm. And my parents were like, the moment they met him and the first words out of his mouth were, maybe the Western medical community gave you these diagnoses, but you can be healed. And my parents were crying because the hope of being told the total opposite empowered them to say, whatever you need to do for Mike, we'll invest into it. Because they basically took their hard-earned work and money and everything and were like, go, Mike, do it. And I saw them 3 days a week for 3 years until I was better. And there was not a day that went by that, like, after the first year, they saw my mental state completely change. They were getting the son back that they used to know, this happy, like, joy, passionate, powerful man that God had created me to be. And it was like the anchor to that journey was to always be able to go back to them and to be able to have them kind of hold my hand in a way into my adulthood to be able to make it, really. And I feel like that's the power of a parent. And that's probably the power of many people listening. You also could be the aunt, the uncle, the grandma. You could be the person who's the one who says, let me go find someone for you. It may be this podcast. It may be, and that was the thing, is like all the resources that my parents drew from was from their community. And I love that, because there's a book called The Community Cure, if I can encourage anybody to read it, but it's my friend James Maskell's book. But community will bring healing to you faster than you being isolated in your sickness or disease state. And so if you don't have one, call me, reach out to me on Instagram, Molecular Mike, like, just connect with somebody, because connection will start to heal you. And see, that was my thing, is that they brought connection to source, to God, back to me as the focal point of my life. But they came to sit in my suffering until I was better. And then they came to now kind of reap the fruit of that reward, because now I'm a health coach to them and I've helped bring them through all kinds of things. I have more stories of being their advocate in my adult life. And that's that kind of mutual handshake, that you're literally raising the next leader in industry to help influence an entire community to be shifting the world. And again, it's the ripple. Like, they just rippled that through. And so hopefully you guys are encouraged as parents. You too are two of the sweetest, kindest, most loving and gentle people I have ever met. Your family reflects that power. And just even being around y'all, there is a healing anointing that y'all carry. And it's seen and felt. And I feel like it's something that my generation needs to see y'all's kind of love. Because that alone, just the way that y'all are, is what's starting to heal other people around you. So thank you guys for just who y'all are.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh my God, Mike. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I should have put Kleenex, right?
Oh, no.
Oh, man.
But I mean,
I appreciate you for saying that.
really,
Thank you.
and that's really how we felt, when we met you too. Always like super happy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We're not super happy to see a lot of people. We're you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so true. Oh, I get it.
You know what I mean? I'm super happy to see you and connect with you. Oh my gosh. Forget this script. Like, what else are we going to talk about?
Like, he already covered the sanative connection part.
Yeah. And I don't think, and you don't know that.
That's sanative.
The sanative connection. Okay, so real quick, Native. So I have two coaches, female coaches, who are both empaths, right? And both of them at the same time were challenging me to find an adjective that describes what I do. And I'm like, skin. They're like, no. There's more. You know what that is, right? But I was so scared to name it, because then in my head I had to step into those big spiritual shoes, basically. Right? And, you know, my facials really are my meditation. And I was like, okay, what is the word, guys? Like, help me out, right? And, excuse me, the word that came was sanative. And I was like, okay, I should have been more specific in English word. Because I had never heard of that word before. And then the next word that came was thesaurus. And I was like, well, I don't even know how to spell that word, but okay, I'll go check it out. Thesaurus.
I love that.
Thanks.
She's not lying.
Thanks.
Spelling's not her.
Hard word to spell.
Yeah.
And it's not a rhyming dinosaur either. That's what I thought when I first heard it. I was like,
yeah, exactly.
the thesaurus rex.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I looked it up, and it means healing therapy, therapeutic healing through connection. And I was like,
I didn't know that there was a real word on that.
That's what I do. Like, that's what we do. That's what you do. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Right? It's sanative. And so at the end, well, we don't have to ask you now, but at the end of every podcast, you know, we talk about, you know, what is your, you know, sanative? How do you connect?
Right?
Yeah. But you just answered it.
Well,
Sure.
he described it. You described it.
Yes.
Like, you know, very accurately.
Yeah.
And, you know, usually, you know, when we're talking about, you know, sanative connection, we always talk about, like, what are these experiences? Because typically, you know, people will bring up people that have established that sanative connection, or experiences, or maybe a technology, or maybe a certain supplementation, right? So we kind of leave it, you know, very open for, you know, whoever we interview to answer that question. So, I mean, since we're on this topic, right? Who would you define or bring into that conversation of sanative or sanative connection?
I think my greatest sanative connection, and I'm going to preface this with another story, and I hate to deem this. A practitioner friend of mine who was listening, he started crying. He goes, I feel like you were trauma stacking, is what he told me, which I think that's hilarious.
Wow.
It was like, you're a trauma stacking. He was like, because I can't imagine that one person can go through this much. Like, he was just, but I will tell you that my sanative connection was my stepmom, and I call her Mama Doris. Mama Doris is my best friend. Mama Doris has been my spiritual advocate from even before I knew who she was. She had known me when I was 5, and I even know her name. And she saw me playing with cars. She was the one who led me to the Lord. She was the one who poured into me faith-wise. She was the one that carried such a powerful connection to God that when I was a kid, I would just sit by her and hold her hand. And so almost 2 years and some change ago, this is my most recent story, and this will tell you how powerful that connection is. I used to play a dopamine line with my own body, which is like I was trying to like drink beers and smoke weed and party and do all these things, and then go to the gym and trying to be a health coach. And I just was playing that line, and that line is a dangerous line. And I started to lose some things in my life that were very significant by becoming a version of myself that people couldn't recognize anymore. And so one of the most powerful connections are the people that stick with you, even when you're actively doing things they know could hurt you. And they advocate where they can, but they give you space so you can learn the lesson. And there's a very fine line in that. And so on Halloween night 2 years ago, I'm driving home from Austin, Texas, I get exposed to a Clostridium bacteria infection from the water in Austin. I drank 3 beers that day. I start to drive home. I feel a brick in my stomach, and I feel like something's off with me. And granted, I'm also like at this point low-key Instagram famous. I've deleted all that since, and I just had built this almost ego repertoire that kind of lost itself when dopamine takes over your tendency, and you become someone that you don't recognize fully. And then there's this spiritual self of you that's always alive and active and almost waiting for you to get back to your purpose. And it's very patient. And so this is my latest tragedy. And when I said this from stage, I'm looking at a bunch of healers, and they're just kind of like, whoa. But I contracted this bacteria, didn't know it was bacteria. I just felt like I had something wrong in my stomach. I'm driving back. I make it to my apartment. I walk up the stairs. I hit my knee on a bedpost, and when I lay back in my bed, I hear some very dark entities' thoughts about me. And they said, everybody that hates you is going to be glad that you're dead. Very scary stuff. And I say all that to say that there's spiritual friends in your life that you can reach out to when you're on death's door, and they will be there for you. They're not even afraid of death. They're afraid of no amount of suffering. They will just be there, though. That's like that connection for me. And I heard God's voice break through and say, you need to forgive everyone that's hurt you so you can love those who love you unconditionally. He told me the pain of my unforgiveness kept me from receiving the love of those who stayed with me this whole time. And there were names in front of me. And I just, in my spirit self, forgave them. And at the same time, I was having a near-death experience. I was going into sinus tachycardia. I was going into sepsis. My lymphatic system was filling up with fluid. My heart rate was 200, and I was laying down completely still. And I was on death's door. And I was a version of myself outside of my own body, helping to support my body move because all my extremities, my hands and feet were atrophying. And this was like the final wake-up call for me. I call my stepmom on the phone, and I told her I'm dying in bed by myself. And I've not lived everything I want to live. And I was like, but I want to let you know that I've forgiven everybody who's hurt me, and I'm at peace. I'll see you in heaven. That's how real this situation was. If she could reach through the phone and pull my spirit from heaven and bring it back into my body through words, she spoke the dreams, all the things that she knew I should become. Every word was like life being poured back into my body. That takes a special somebody. Who is that in your life? Well, I had that in my life. Those words brought me back to have enough strength. I told her thank you, and I dialed 911. And when the ambulance came in, my dad stayed up with me for 26 hours in the hospital. It's the last time I ever touched alcohol or any sort of dopamine addiction. It's done. And God gave me my life back. And the person that helped walk me through it was Mama Doris. And I'm telling you, it takes someone so rooted in who they are not to be moved in any situation, to keep the connection that you have with God alive, even when they see things that are not right in your life. And that's that connection for me. That's like the Bible says there's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. And she was my best friend and always has been, even today. Like, you guys can feel me. She feels me at all times since I was 5, and I turned 35 on Monday. And so that's that connection. I mean, who's your friend? It's like I'm asking, people on the podcast, like, who's your friend? Who's that person that you could call tonight and they'll be at your house? And that just created a highlight for me that there are people in your life that live and move and have their being in an unconditional version of you. Just like what we're talking about here. Like, when I see you guys, I light up because you guys just pour out unconditional love. Same back from you to me. There's not everybody does that. And so that's a life-giving spirit that springs up from you, and it connects to someone like you, and the life you have is the life I get, and the life I have is the life you get. And that's that beautiful balance. But that started with me with Mama Doris, my sweet stepmom. And I don't like the word stepmom, but I call her my spiritual mom, because she's the one who helped me cultivate a spiritual life by showing me how she lived hers.
That is beautiful. And for her to have, in that moment, to me, I mean, it's a moment of desperation. And for her, you know, somebody who is like your parent, to hold space in that moment for you to still make a choice. Mm-hmm. Still, it's your choice.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
Yeah. Wow is the word.
I have no better friend on earth, really.
Yeah.
No,
and I that connection to me is like, if you guys ever get a chance to meet Mama Doris someday when y'all are in Dallas.
I'm sure we will.
I'm sure we will.
She's an awesome woman. Yeah. She's so cool. And any one of my friends, like literally I have friends who will come and she'll sit with them. She'll give them her phone number, and there's never a time she won't answer the phone. There's never a time she won't pull from her own life to give to you. And she just sits in that place 24/7 with my dad. And all they do is think of ways to help others be loved.
Wow.
And it's just, that's, and I tell people all the time, my friends don't necessarily have parents like that. And so what I happen to be to them as a friend is that place of love that they felt missing from their parents. And so sometimes we could be fathers or mothers to motherless children, or people who have gone through these situations. And that love that you carry is something eternal. They will feel it, know it, and recognize it forever.
Right.
And how powerful is that? Like, I'm just so thankful that we get to walk in that and use that as a tool to help people feel the love of God. It's all about unconditional love. Like, our existence exists so that we experience it and give it every day of our lives. Isn't that awesome?
So beautiful.
Let's go. God is so
beautiful.
Good. You guys are so good. It's so nice to have space to be able to even talk like this, because it's most podcasts they're picking my brain about like a supplement for an hour, and then you look up and you're like done, and you guys are like the opposite. We go like a little bit on a supplement, but a lot on what makes up our life. And so I just appreciate you guys letting me kind of spiritually flow.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Can I ask, though, why did you choose to stay in that moment that you were dying? Why did you choose to stay?
There was, in forgiving, the power of forgiveness, there's a spiral of shame and trauma around certain like choices we make. And in the moment of having it erased, I was like, I need to go and tell people that they can have theirs erased. Like, it was like, it became my absolute mission. It was like, if God can make it so clear to like never drink again and never do these things to harm myself, even ways of thinking, even ways of body dysmorphia, even just different things, he wanted me to break it so I could hand a tool to this next generation that they could break it and not have to go through it. So when I have kids one day, I'm gonna, just like your kids, they radiate the love and power of God. They are a reflection of you guys' kindness. And that's a mission that you guys share together. That's my mission. I want the same thing for everybody I interact with, that there's nothing that you have to hold on to that is something that can harm you, that it can be erased, and that you can be free in a mission or a purpose that's beyond yourself. And you can get into that, and you can just start. You don't have to have a degree for it. You don't have to go and spend 20 years for it. Just take those experiences and go give them to people who need them. And that was the feeling I got. It was like, you know what? I have my life back. I'm going to do everything every day of my life to go serve and give people love, kindness, anything that I could do. It's like the mission got re-downloaded, because in the apathy of age, we start to lose the passion of what we used to have when we were young. And in the eternity of the spirit, there is no age. So once you tap back in, I want to stay in that source for the rest of my life. And so it's just like this thing where like you don't play with something you lose anymore. You only keep gaining ground to a greater and greater degree of maturity, so that when I'm 95, it's going to be the same message of what we get to talk about here, of the same purpose that hit me at 32 or 33, excuse me, that now I'm going to carry into 35 and beyond, and as we go down that line. And so that was really it re-downloaded things that had happened to me to re-inspire me just to be who God created me to be and to not compromise anymore. So I have people ask me all the time, they're like, well, do you have temptations? You want to go back to apathy or these ways of thinking or anything? I'm like, I never do. It's not like something that I'm like trying to think about, do I tug a war with? It's like, if there's something that's a clean slate, it becomes like the old never existed. And that's the power of like true grace, true unconditional love, is that every day we wake up, it's something brand new.
So really, on your birthday, on the 10th, you're going to have to add a couple of zeros behind that 35. Because really, like, you've lived a few lifetimes.
No kidding, though, right?
In this life.
I have, actually.
That's amazing. And really, what an honor to meet a soul like you.
For sure.
So grateful that you had those people, that you have Christian in your life, that you have that your parents are your parents.
It's incredible.
Incredible.
But yeah, funny that you mentioned that, like, most people pick your brain about the intellectual stuff, in other words, right?
Yeah.
We get that all the time from a lot of our guests, because majority of them are in those positions, right? As far as being educators go. Mm-hmm. And, we're put in that position as educators within our own field as well. But what we notice is that, the healing, the real healing, right? The real biohacking even, right? Starts from this connection, this healing connection, this native connection, right? And a lot of it also ties in with, figuring out, really, like, what is it that you can find within yourself? And what does optimization look like? What does optimizing your Naʻau, right? As we come full circle back. And, as many of you that may have been listening to our podcast know, Naʻau, when we talk about our Naʻau, we're talking about more than just what the literal translation of it is in Hawaiian, which is talking about our gut. But, in the Hawaiian language and in our culture, there are many meanings to one word. And in this case, Naʻaupono, there's a lot more to it than just correcting your gut, right? It's also, more than just making things right, within the space of where our spiritual being is and our connection to the universe is. So, with that being said, how do you optimize your Naʻau?
I love that. That's awesome. I would say that the neuro-emotional connection to the gut itself is how you digest everything. And how you digest everything is how you will process, absorb, and bring back into the world what you've taken in. And so I think the most ultimate thing to think about is to take time to let things digest and become the nutrients, the soil, the power, everything you draw from. And that's been my Naʻau. That's been like literally from the gut. There's gut feelings for a reason. There's like so much power in how we feel, that's the ultimate in the restoration of everything to me. Because whether it's this podcast or when I cut this off and I go explore the next spiritual talk I listen to, or I turn on a red light therapy panel or whatever, and I digest the light. All of that comes from that gut, that core, the center. And that's something that I always taught my patients, that if you had problems with your digestive system, it was not about the food you eat, it's how you process everything in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I've been working on for a long time, because it's like now I'm digesting a lot of spiritual knowledge and things that take a long time to really understand. What does it mean? How does it connect to me? And giving myself space to absorb it. And our generation, my generation, they want everything in a microwave, and nothing will kill your gut connection more than using the microwave and eating food from it. So there is no microwave on this journey. We're all on a long-term way of digesting and processing the deeper things in different levels and degrees. So give your gut grace and slow down. This is not a race. This is a journey.
So well said.
Thank you. I hope I even answered. I'm just like stream of consciousness over here, but I love hearing about y'all's language. I think it's, even when y'all text, you use your language. And it's so beautiful to, like, I've just never dealt with Hawaiian culture. I've never been to Hawaii. I love language in general. So it's just beautiful that you guys embody the words that are part of your culture. So thank you for sharing it with me, because it's like a whole other world exists inside of a language that I'm just getting to understand like 3 or 4 words about, So I'm sure you guys are like a wealth of that knowledge from it being like your heritage. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, Mike, what is your handle again?
Molecular.Mike.
Molecular.Mike.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Mike McNeal, Director of Practitioner Education for STEMREGEN.
Mm-hmm.
Check him out on Instagram. Check out STEMREGEN. They're going to be all over the country this year
For sure.
at conferences. And we highly encourage you to check out some of the research that he was talking about.
Yeah.
With the stem cells.
Yeah, and if you guys are interested, Stem Cell Christian is Christian's Instagram, and STEMREGEN is STEMREGEN's Instagram. But Stem Cell Christian he's my mentor. He's someone I look up to. So like, he just, every post he makes is so inspiring. So if you guys want to be inspired, like, go check him out. He's cool. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, you guys are a blessing. I appreciate y'all.
And we will see you around Roast.
Okay, cool. Let's do it. I'm excited. The next spatial, the next healing journey, the next conference. It's going to be so fun.
For sure.
Heck yeah.
Thank you again for joining us. Take care.
Take care. Aloha.
Aloha.